Hello dear viewers, and welcome to another video from this here old dwarf. Today I'm going to talk about the massively multiplayer online role-playing game Lord of the Rings Online. You may wonder why I'm covering a game in this genre when nearly all my other previous videos were focused more on single player content. Over the years I've played numerous MMORPGs such as World of Warcraft, Rift, Warhammer Age of Reckoning, Guild Wars 2 and others. It is a genre I'm quite interested in, with different games that I would like to try out and see what they have to offer. So I thought, why not do a video about it and share it all with you. Fear not, for I'm still making single player videos as well. So, firstly, what is an MMORPG, you ask? It stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. This means it is a role-playing game with quests and characters and loot and levelling and all that, but in a shared world with other players. You will come across other players in the game just like yourself. You can talk with them, form a group for difficult content, create guilds, and even fight them in certain scenarios. Some MMOs you can almost play completely alone, whereas with others you will need to group up with players for certain content, like player vs player scenarios or dungeons and raids, which are instant encounters pitting the players against NPCs, non-player characters, in scripted fights. In this video, I will discuss my experience playing Lord of the Rings Online. I've played a few hours in the past, but for this video I started from scratch, from level 1, for at least 15 hours. I discussed the various aspects of the game as I encountered them, what I think is cool, what perhaps could be changed for the better. This video concerns the new player experience, that is, what a person playing Lord of the Rings Online for the first time will encounter, being new to all the game's features and systems. I think this is important to stress. I've played MMOs at endgame for long periods of time, and the experience between max level and levelling can contrast quite a lot. But the introduction, the starter experience, is that first point of contact with a new player. Simply put, it needs to be fun and enticing to keep that player interested so that they might progress onwards to being a long-term player who will then experience the later game content. So now I've rambled on a bit, let's actually take a look at the game itself. Lord of the Rings Online, or LOTRO, is an MMORPG set in Tolkien's Middle-earth and centred around the time of the War of the Ring. Frodo taking the ring to Mordor, Gandalf and all that. It is a deep well of Tolkien lore to tap into. It was released in 2007, originally developed by Turbine and later by Standing Stone Games. It is an older game with quite a few expansions and a level cap of 140. The game is free to play, that is, you can download the game absolutely free. In order to play certain content, you would previously had to have paid on the store, along with certain classes like the Rune Master. In an update in 2022, a large swathe of the older content, including some of these classes, were offered to the player for free. A good thing. There is a plethora of things you can buy on the store, but I refrained from purchasing anything. Server-wise, there is an option to play on the current retail version with the latest expansion Fates of Gundabad, while there exists 2 legacy servers which started with the original content, releasing new expansions at a steady pace. I thought it wise to play on the standard current content server in the EU, as I imagine this is what most players will go for. Once you've logged in, you're greeted with the character selection creation screen. There are numerous races to choose from when creating your character, from those of the good side of Middle-earth, elves, men, hobbits, etc. And of course, best of all, dwarves. If you accidentally click on a different race, don't worry, you can easily go back and select a dwarf. You will be able to change quite a few different things for your dwarf, from eyes and nose to mighty beard and hair. It is not the most exhaustive character creation, but it does enough for you to distinguish your character as you might. There are many classes to choose from. Your choice here will have an impact on your adventure through Middle-earth. There exists in many MMOs the concept of the Holy Trinity between classes. That is, the 3 roles a class can fill during combat: tank, healer and damage dealer, or DPS. When fighting through a dungeon, a tank is the player whose character is geared and spec'd to hold the attention of baddies and to resist as much damage as possible. The healer, as you might imagine, heals the tank and other players through spells and effects. The role of the DPS is to inflict as much damage as possible on the creature being tanked. I chose a Rune Master initially before changing my mind and switching to Captain, a kind of support class which involves buffing your fellow players while also dealing damage. Once you've created your character, it is time to enter Middle-earth. I was greeted by a familiar face, Gandalf the Grey. I talked with him and some dwarves I recognised, like Gimli and Thorin himself, just before they head off on their adventure detailed in The Hobbit. I was then whisked away into a little instance to do some fighting. Windows popped up as I played here, telling you how to do basic things like move the character and the camera around the screen. This is good, of course. You aren't just dumped in with nothing to go on. I was playing the game in 1440p, which with all the graphics turned up made for a very small user interface. I'm an old dwarf and need things to be a bit bigger, so I went into the options screens and found a simple button to increase the size of everything. There are extensive options for the UI, sound and video built into the client as standard, along with a toggle which allows you to freely move any part of the UI as you wish. Good stuff. Graphically, the game looks as you might expect for a 15-year-old game. I suspect there has been a few upgrades over that time though. The character models look a little dated, yes, but they are of a quality that is still good in this dwarf's eyes. The scenery is a little old, with some very angular looking bits and some lower res textures, but the world has a character of its own that does make you feel like you're in a fantasy world such as this. Once the little instance is over, Gandalf and Thorin set off and we go on to a little quest series around the area of Thorin's Gate. It involves fighting some bad dwarfs, oh the shame, before reclaiming Thorin's hold. There is a nice set piece here with you fighting through the hall with your fellow dwarves and some elf friends before confronting the main bad guys. This is a nice and rather exciting start to the game. We're immediately presented with big name characters in the lore like Gandalf, have the basics introduced to us, and we got stuck into a good old rumble. After this, we are taken forward in time with Thorin's Hold, now seemingly the main base for the dwarves. It is round here that I started picking up quests all over the place, helping my fellow dwarves and solving whatever problems they might have. There is a quest tracker as standard when pressing M to bring up the map. The locations of objectives are highlighted upon it. More good stuff indeed, and simply built in from the get-go. Having an idea where I'm supposed to go is most helpful, and although perhaps a little immersion breaking, I would say for me at least it was helpful in figuring out where I needed to go. During this time, more of the systems were introduced to me. I received a letter in the mail, which can be accessed by a mailbox which are strewn across the land. It asked me to go to Thorin's Hold and speak to a dwarf there that would set me up with some crafting professions. These are skills in the game that a player can use to make various things, like armour, weapons and food, along with gathering professions like collecting wood or ore. Interestingly, you seemingly can't take whatever skills you fancy, but rather a set of 3 professions grouped under a vocation, such as explorer, historian, tinker or armsman. Their names give an insight into the actual professions included. For example, a woodsman will know woodworking, forestry and farming, with the first being a crafting skill and the other 2 concerning gathering items out in the world to be processed to make things. This is a good way to introduce crafting and helps to alleviate confusion with so many professions to choose from. Here you can see if you want to make weapons, then the armsman vocation will have all the professions you need. If you like exploring, then perhaps the explorer vocation would be the one for you. Once I selected a vocation, I was sent off to NPCs for each of the professions involved and shown how to use specific tools and workbenches, giving me enough starting materials to make or process a few things. This is great and helped a lot. The game gave me a free starter box which contained some items such as health potions and buffs and things, which is nice. Of course when collecting it there is a nudge to the store, but I guess that is going to happen in a free to play game. In fact, there is a quest that gets you to open the store itself. I did get a free horse out of it though, so that's nice. A lot of the quests are what you would come to expect from a fantasy PvE focused game. Kill 10 of these, collect 8 of those, confront this naughty person, etc. This is well and good and something I would expect to see. After a while, levelling in the dwarven part of the world, I got a letter to go to Bree, and so I set off on a journey across the land. It took me to the Yonder Shire, then through the Shire, past Buckland, and then finally into Bree. While in the Shire, I went to Bag End to see the place in-game. There was no Frodo or Bilbo here though, seemingly long gone through the events of the story. While in Bree, I was sent to the Prancing Pony, another iconic place in the lore. This was to meet with Strider, who then sends you off on what must be the main storyline of the game. It involved Evilry and Nazgul and a meeting with Tom Bombadil himself. Great stuff. Along with the setting of the game and all the glorious locations, it is the story that makes Lord of the Rings. So being involved with the main tale like this was exciting. I hope that should I carry on after this, that I would see more of it. Combat uses tab targeting, as you might be used to from such a game as World of Warcraft. That is, you press tab to cycle through targets and then use skills from your skill bar to combat the assailant. My character, being a captain focused on melee combat, I had numerous skills involving attacking thy foe with a blade, along with buffs to the party and even some healing. There was quite a lot of skills already, even at low level, so I wonder perhaps it could become a little convoluted, but I managed to have a decent enough idea of what was going on. I felt very strong, even pulling multiple mobs. I never felt particularly in danger, easily dispatching any info I encountered. This may be just to help push you through the lower levels quicker rather than too much challenge, and I understand that. I did see that in the latest update they added a difficulty option to make the world more dangerous that was previously available on the legendary servers. If you're looking for more of a challenge at earlier levels, then this might be for you. When it came time to group up for instance content, I got access to the Instance Finder tool. This appears to list instances which you can sign up to. I didn't have a lot of luck finding a group at level 20 sadly, leaving me to wonder how active the lower levels of the game were. I did manage to get into the Barrow Downs, led by a player named Lara Uiz, and I'm sorry if I've butchered your name there. They wonderfully took time to lead this old dwarf through it, fighting through evil undead, and I appreciated it greatly. With regards to all the systems in the game, there are quite a few, and it can be somewhat overwhelming trying to get any idea of what they all are. There is a skill tree system where you add points in when you level up like you do in classic WoW. There are stats like might and vitality and such which you can hover over and discover what they do. Besides this are racial skills which you can unlock, though I'm not sure how, along with fate skills which are passive buffs you can slot in and level up through gameplay. It could seem somewhat daunting to someone who is new to the genre, but once you understand what's happening it isn't too bad. And that is the hump to get over, taking the time to learn everything that is going on. There are also hobbies, which include fishing, which is a great thing indeed. There are companion pets, mounts, titles, and all sorts of things which you can discover from the character screen. There is a great load of stuff that if I went through here, we'd be doing quite a long time. Overall, I had quite a nice starting experience while playing Lord of the Rings Online. The systems were generally introduced well, with useful help in learning about things like crafting. I do wish the instance stuff was explained a bit better though, as I would have liked to have tried some more with the full group. The combat is fun enough with some interesting features like skills requiring certain events to occur or being in a certain state. Though if you enjoy more action orientated combat, you might not enjoy this as much. The quests are well thought out with the main story stuff being quite exciting, driving me to want to see more of it. The world is literally Middle-earth, including all of the famous locations you might read in the books or seen in the films. It is all here, you can see it all, and it feels most certainly Tolkien-like. This is a great boon indeed. The store is always there, and perhaps it might have been quite an issue with lots of the content locked away, but in that update as I mentioned, a lot of it is now free. There is a decade and a half worth of content here, which I imagine must take a long time to get through, should you wish to see it all. But, in this same vein, there is a lot of content here. It can be daunting. This is the problem with starting a game, especially an MMO 15 years after it began. So much has already happened that you can feel like you've missed the party, you've missed the boat, etc. The vast number of updates, systems, instances and all that could put you off with information overload. I enjoyed my time here though, and I think it is well worth checking out. It is a bit of a hill to climb to understand what on earth's going on, but I think you would have fun doing so. As mentioned, they have classic servers which begin from the original game start, adding content over steady increments. Perhaps if I was to play this as my main game, I might try one of those first, so I could assimilate the content as it comes, rather than everything all at once. So, Lotro is worth checking out with interesting systems, stories and combat. But be prepared to have to learn a lot of stuff. The shop at this point doesn't feel overly offensive, though I'm not sure how much of a slog levelling might be past level 20 without purchasing something to help. There is of course a VIP system which no doubt gives you all sorts of goodies, and if I was playing this as my main MMO I would probably check that out. The free-to-play starter experience for Lord of the Rings Online is fun and interesting, and one I would recommend if you're looking for a new PvE focused MMO. But saying this, as mentioned, there is an awful lot of stuff to learn here and quite a number of levels to get through, which could put some people off. but it is definitely worth a look. And there we go, dear viewers. Probably my longest video ever, but I felt I needed to try and hit as many points as I could to give this game a good run. I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you, dear viewers, and I will see you next time.